What's up, guys? So Candace Owens goes on to Don Lemon, and I noticed in the mainstream media a big way and a big technique that they do debates is to kind of assert or assume and speculate on the intentions of your words. So I thought this was a great showcasing that Candace did, exposing Don Lemon's bad arguments, bad techniques of debates, and kind of asserting her own dominance here. We're going to start the debate with the January 6th question, and they start talking about the January 6th here. I think this was a great part where Candace Owens really was able to catch Don Lemon, and basically all Don Lemon has is the words that Trump uses to assert and assume that he was the couper, and he actually masterminded this whole coup. But I have a lot of evidence. For example, do we now have to believe that Biden was the mastermind of the assassination attempt? Because 3 days before the assassination attempt, he said that we need to put Trump in a bullseye. We're going to put Trump in the bullseye now. It's time to put Trump in the bullseye. Are we going to now assert that he's the mastermind of the whole assassination? We cannot do that. So you also cannot do the assertion of the coup based on a couple of words from the speech. So let's go here and showcase the Candace Owens debate, and we'll discuss and react to it.
There was no insurrection around that. I mean, she eventually accepted.
Well, now you're accusing him of the insurrection. He has nothing to do with.
No, I said, but there was no insurrection around that. I didn't mention.
You can say that or not, but you just said he's an election denier. Okay, well that would put Hillary Clinton in the exact same camp. And so it's very weird when there seems to be this sort of like Men in Black memory wipe where people pretend that suddenly Trump was the first person who questioned election results when that's been going on for a very long time in America and nobody cared about that.
Hear me out here. There's a difference between questioning an election, the results of an election, which happened with Al Gore and George Bush, than having almost every court in the land disagree with the assessment that the election was stolen. There's a difference between questioning an election than saying it was stolen. There's a difference between someone saying, I thought I should have won, and there were, I had all these wins that were, that were not at my back, than someone saying, the election was stolen, and that these people are heroes who actually desecrated the Capitol and beat up police officers, and a police officer ended up dying. That's a whole different thing. Those two are not equal.
So your old network even debunks the points that you just made. Obviously, the person that died that day was Ashley Babbitt, the only person who died on that day.
My old network does not debunk that.
They absolutely. I covered it on my show. Even
no,
CNN.
I work there. They do not. They do not.
Well, I have my computer. Do you want me to bring it up live? The CNN article where they debunked that Brian, who you're talking about, the police officer, died that day. He didn't.
No, I didn't
die
say
that
he died
day.
that day. I said
okay,
he
correct.
Died.
Let me finish this. You
Police
said he died because you're trying to make people believe that it had something to do with what happened. He died of a stroke, a completely unrelated stroke days later. So that narrative that was quickly pushed out by CNN was then subsequently debunked. So the only person that died that day was Ashley Babbitt, and Ashley Babbitt was a Trump supporter. So only a Trump supporter died on that day. Regarding the insurrection narrative, there are questions that still have not been answered that seem implausible to me. I happened to be on that day in DC, 9 months pregnant, and it's just stunning to me that that whole summer DC burned and nobody cared, and then suddenly people are talking about an insurrection and nobody is asking the common sense question of why the FBI, while they can lock up grandmas for having walked into the Capitol, some of these charges are heinous, absolutely heinous. You see these people on camera just for simply walking in at the beckoning of security guards who allowed them in, were put into prison for a very long time. So I'll ask you the question: do you think it's a legitimate stance, or that it's legitimate that the FBI can't figure out who it was that dropped off pipe bombs the night before?
No, I don't think that any of what you said is very relevant, because the facts speak for themselves. No, I don't think that it's relevant. I think talking about the FBI is really deflecting the attention from what really happened. A friend of mine, Michael Fanone, was a police officer who fought that day, who had a heart attack, who had a head injury, was beaten with flagpoles and beaten with sticks by people who were in that crowd. The officer who died of a stroke, shortly after. I think that it would be tough to say that the stress that he suffered from that did not have something to do with it. Ashley Babbitt broke into the Capitol. It's awful that.
Sure, it would be hard to say, but this is still speculation. Like I'm showing you guys, this is all the mainstream media has. All they have is speculation and assumption. They don't have any real evidence. And he tried to say that police officer died So she was like debunking him, and he's like, no, I didn't mean that he died that same day. Yeah, that's the debunk. That's what she's trying to tell you. She debunked you that he didn't die because of that. And then when he was trying to show the evidence that he didn't die from that day, but there is evidence that, it's hard to not link it. All he has, it's hard to not link it. So he's assuming, he's speculating, and we're supposed to trust these journalists that all they have, this gay journalist, that I don't even know how his brain works, but I'm supposed to trust his assumptions and speculations. There's no way this guy's gay. He doesn't work, his brain doesn't work the same way as me. For me to sit there and assume the same way he's assuming, it's not going to work at all. So this is my problem with these so-called journalists and reporters that tell you to not do your own research, is all they have is no research. They don't have any research themselves. All they have is speculation and assertion, and they try to hope to God that you don't catch them on it. That's literally it. And Candace Owens caught him there. Now he looks really bad. Now he had to basically come up with an argument. Well, it's very hard for me to not believe that he died because of this. The heart attack was, conceived of because of this event here. Absolutely not. You cannot actually link the heart attack with this event in any way. I don't think you can actually do that in a with any evidence at all besides what you believe happened and you speculating on and putting your assumption on the topic. But other than that, I don't think you can actually relate the heart attack with this event in any way. And Candace Owens was able to prove that the journalists themselves, all they have is assumptions and speculations, and with that they push out misinfo. So he's trying to say, because he assumes and he's speculated that the heart attack was linked to this event, now he's pushing out this misinfo that the event was the cause of this heart attack, and so the event was the cause of this police officer's death. And that was an amazing showcasing there by Candace Owens to expose this Don Lemon's bad ideas. He really has a his brain is tiny compared to mine and Candace Owens. And I will say Candace Owens' brain is much bigger than mine. I'll give her that. But let's continue this for a little bit longer. We'll laugh a little bit more, and then I have another topic I want to show you guys here.
Anybody died. Police officers, you see the tape on camera telling everyone to stand down as she tried to enter. She was not complying. As people say, when police officers or officials tell you to do something, one should comply. And when she tried to break into the Capitol and defy the officers' commands, they did what they had to do, and she ended up dying. It's awful that it happened, but to say that she died, and I assume insinuate that it was because of some nefarious actions by the officers, I just think that is beyond the pale and does not actually fit a solid narrative of what actually happened.
Well, it's very dizzying. I'm actually dizzy right now because your entire perspective has been pro BLM, and your entire perspective on your network has been essentially that it was totally fine for the officers that were bludgeoned, the officers that were killed, the officers all throughout New York City in the BLM riots. You even had Yale graduates.
Can we keep the focus?
Please let me finish. I just allowed you to finish. I just think it's nice to allow me to finish since I'm a guest on your show.
It is, but I want you to.
But you had them throwing bombs,
I want you to keep the focus on the insurrection and not on
Molotov
BLM.
cocktails in the very same summer that you're talking about the insurrection. Molotov cocktails were thrown into police cruisers during the BLM George Floyd riots.
But
you didn't seem to have the same sensitivity toward police officers.
We're not talking about BLM. Can we?
But it's relevant because it was happening in the exact same city. Okay. And so suddenly, like I said, I'm just dizzy because I can't figure out whether or not you care about police officers or you don't care about them, because now you're sharing emotional stories and now you're cutting me off when I want to share one about a Molotov cocktail that was thrown into a police cruiser in New York by some college graduates. In the media, the platform that you were on cheered it on because this was about justice. But suddenly when it's patriots, you want to talk about the sad stories of the police officers. You're now saying that because you don't comply, you can get shot. That's fine if that's your perspective, that Ashley Bobbitt wasn't complying, but then we should probably revisit the George Floyd riots.
Many Americans can be deemed as patriots in this country, even
okay, well, I don't know why you're cutting me off. I haven't cut you off. I'm just trying to get out my point.
I'm trying to tell you because we have very limited time.
Absolutely amazing. Candace Owens did amazing there. She was able to prove that Don Lemon has Alzheimer's or some kind of mental illness issue, like he has a mental disease, because he Remember the time of BLM where he was touting out, yes, we should. This is your right to protest. This is your First Amendment right to protest. You have a right to freedom of speech. You have a right to protest as an American. And all of a sudden he was demonized. Remember, he was demonizing the cops that would stop the rioters, say, hey, these are not rioters. These are protesters. You can't stop them, even though BLM created a lot of chaos, created a lot of damage, and actually a lot of people ended up dying. And she even brings up a story of a police cruiser getting attacked. So it's actually dizzying, a great point that Candace Owens brings up. It's actually dizzying to listen to Don Lemon. Are we supposed to hate the police that remove your right to protest as an American? Or are we supposed to love the police that protected the Capitol against your freedom of speech and your right to protest? It's absolutely amazing point there that Candace Owens was able to destroy Don Lemon there, and he had to try to basically completely shut down the whole discussion. He didn't want her to continue in any way at all. He wanted her to just stop talking because he really was caught there. He was caught in a Alzheimer's moment there, where he forgot his own position on the matter. That his own position was supposed to be, hey, police should allow rioters to riot. That was his own position. And now we're going to go on to the COVID-19 narrative, guys. They're going to discuss the COVID-19 narrative for a little bit, and then we're going to move on to like the anti-Semitism, the Christianity topic, and the Nick Fuentes. So let's jump in.
It's not selfish. It's not selfish. It's actually the opposite to say that you should inject something into your body simply because this person says so. And by the way, the science involved in
Here's the thing that you don't understand, that people don't understand.
To offer their bodily autonomy in order to maintain their jobs.
But see, I think that's false, Candace.
It is.
No, because there was
which part is false?
Mandate. You did not have to order people. If you did not want to take the vaccine, you did not have to take it. If you don't want to take a vaccine,
and many people lost their jobs. OSHA tried to mandate it, and then they had to fight that all the way up into.
You can voluntarily not do it.
So it's a threat. We're not mandating it, but just so you know, you're going to lose your entire life and not be able to feed your family.
You don't have to lose your entire life.
I mean, that's kind of a little.
If I did not take a vaccine, ridiculous. I would not be allowed to go to school.
Okay.
So because why? I was putting other people's lives in danger. So
this is going to shock you, Don. My kids are not vaxxed.
You can decide to do a whole lot of things.
And that's wrong.
But that's not a mandate.
That's wrong. That's why I moved to a state where there's medical freedom. And guess what? You can compare statistics in the states where they have the most unvaccinated children with states like California where they couldn't be more vaxxed. And so your entire philosophy that somehow the unvaxxed kids are harming the kids that are vaccinated is nonsensical, by the way. How can you say, in order for my vaccine to work, you have to get a vaccine? What kind of science is that? If your vaccine is working, then you don't have to worry about unvaxxed kids. You know, people are waking up to this.
People who were vaccinated had higher rates of death from COVID than other places.
That is simply untrue. Okay. That is simply made up statistics to justify the fact that they harmed a lot of people with not false science or evolving science, lies. They straight up told people that if they got the vaccine, they were not going to get or transmit COVID. They lied, okay? They knew it was a lie because it required censorship to maintain the lie. They were censoring independent voices who were saying...
with people filled with people who did not take the vaccine and on their deathbeds. You know what they said to me? I wish that I had not listened to the people, to the QAnon and to the non-vaxxers and to those people. I wish I hadn't done it because maybe I wouldn't be in this hospital dying.
Well, that's so shocking that you were able to talk to people on their deathbeds because people were not even able to see their loved ones. The hospitals were so locked down. So how were you able to speak to so many people on their deathbeds in hospitals in New York City?
No, this was not in New York City, as a matter of fact. And it was It was after the lockdown. It was at the hospital where I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And
it's quite shocking because they were not allowing in hospitals for people to even see their loved ones. And you were able to talk to people on their dying bed.
You forget that there were
that was their death wish to talk to Don Lemon about the vaccine. It seems like one of those stories when they say,
trying to explain to me where I was and what happened. It just seems like one of those
fairy tale stories where they say, like, on their deathbed, she said, I just don't really buy that. I don't really buy this, that you spoke to tons of people on their deathbeds.
Okay, this was after.
I'm going to rate that false.
Okay, no, you're not going to rate it false because all you have to do is go back.
Was it their last words too?
Go back and look. No, their last words were not to me, but some of their last words were to me because some of them died after I left the hospital. It was not when we had the lockdown. This was shortly after things started to open back up, we could actually travel on planes, when we could leave our houses, and there were still people in COVID wards. And I interviewed them when I worked for CNN, and they said, I wish that I had taken the vaccine because maybe I would not be dying. And their loved ones afterwards,
they
said that on their deathbed. So what you're saying, I think, is completely...
Well, I just want to share a story too. I too was allowed as a journalist into hospital wards, and people said to me on their deathbeds, I wish that I hadn't taken the vaccine because it didn't work and I'm still dying on this deathbed. So I had the same thing happen to me.
If it didn't work and they're still dying, then...
Yeah, I got the vaccine and yet somehow I'm still on my deathbed. So clearly it didn't work. So that was that. I don't know. That's what they shared with me on their deathbed.
Okay, so if they wouldn't have
I was allowed into a hospital
that doesn't
ward
make
here in
sense
Tennessee.
though, because how do they know if they didn't, if they didn't get the vaccine, what difference?
They did get it, and they were still put on ventilators. So the vaccine didn't work, and so I'm a journalist. They allowed me into the hospital wards, and that's what they told me. And I was working.
How were you able to go in the hospital wards when we were on lockdown? They got to talk. I'm just being facetious here.
I know.
It goes both ways. Okay, so this is a quote from you, right after you said that you were leaving the cult of science. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna play.
All right, guys, really quickly, I want to show you the proof that he is absolutely wrong here. That Don Lemon's claim here was, and there's a lot of claims here that there's no mandate. That's actually completely wrong. Candace Owens was able to actually debunk that. There was a big push against people, and I can show you 100 videos of in Canada, but also in America, where they basically wouldn't allow people to go to work anymore, except if they got this vaccine. What about this? They were trying to push for these vaccine passports. Remember, guys, they were trying to push that you can't even leave the country without you getting a stamp. So he's trying to act like there was no mandate, but you couldn't live a normal life except if you got the vaccine. So I don't know what that, if that's not a mandate, I don't know what could be a mandate, that you're not allowed to live a normal life except if you, involve yourself in this experimental procedure, a medical procedure. So I cannot think of anything more than a mandate, like anything that can define the word mandate more. But here is the other claim here, that the death rates for non-vaccinated people were much higher. Well, I'm going to show you guys here. Sweden, we all know that it never shut down. It never actually pushed for mass vaccinations, and never did anything actually for the COVID-19. Actually didn't do anything. And I want to just show you guys their death rates compared to everyone else in the area. So this is showing you number of days since 0.1 daily death days. 0.1 daily deaths first recorded. And here's... average deaths ever since recorded. So 7-day rolling average of new deaths by number of days since 0.1. So at the height of the deaths, you can see Sweden wasn't the number one death. So at the height of all the deaths, when all the vaccines were being pushed out, Sweden didn't have the highest death rates at all, and actually was going and is also going down. You can see its death rate is actually going down the same time other countries are vaccinating, even though they didn't vaccinate themselves. Now they are now, according to this data, at the highest amount of death rates, COVID-19 wise. But when we did roll out the vaccine, it seems like they weren't the highest death rate, and they continued to go down even though there was no shutdown of the country and there was no vaccination. So there is still evidence to show that you can recover from COVID. You don't have to hit, you're not going to hit a huge amount of death rate. Like, for example, if Sweden's the only country that never got vaccinated and everything else in the area got vaccinated, why is it going on a negative direction, the actual average of the deaths? It should be going in a positive way. It should be still increasing upwards, whereas everything else is going down if the vaccine was extremely effective. But this is kind of proving to you that they didn't need the vaccine to reduce their death rate. Now, I'm not saying that this is an argument to show that the vaccine is not effective. Obviously, it's very effective. It was able to reduce the death rates in Belgium, UK, and a lot of these areas, and Denmark as well. But I can also show you through that same diagram that Sweden did not need a vaccine push to also start a reduction in their death rate as well. Even after the highest point of death rate, they've been reducing ever since. So that's the evidence I have that there is it's not necessarily 100% that the reason the death is going down is because of the COVID vaccine push, although there is evidence to show that it's not 100% positive. So how can Don Lemon sit there and claim that for 100% positive, like basically 100% guaranteed that if you take the vaccine, you're going to reduce your death rates, when other countries did not take the vaccine and still reduce their death rates? It's just my question here. But now, final thing, and I don't want to, it's very hard for me to dive into this. I have to pick my words very carefully. I don't want to get my channel demonetized. Obviously, the vaccine is extremely safe and effective in dealing with COVID-19 and reducing death risk from COVID-19. But I'm saying it seems like the evidence showing that there's multiple other ways to do that as well, that don't involve shutdowns or vaccine rollouts. Now, final point here I want to talk about is the Christian slash anti-Semitic claims here. So let's jump right into the topic, and they're going to kind of talk about Nick Fuentes as well. So let's jump in here and finish up the video.
Awesome. And, what you just explained, my question to you is, and because people think that you are you anti-Semitic?
No, I'm not anti-Semitic.
Go on.
Go on with what? You asked me a question, I answered it.
You said
I don't need to launch into defense of myself because I'm just not anti-Semitic. There's nothing that I hear that I need to add. I guess today anti-Semitism, the definition keeps expanding, and now I guess it means if you don't fall over yourself every time Bibi Netanyahu speaks, they're just going to call you an anti-Semite. Nope, I'm a Christian. Kids being bombed is upsetting to me, and I have a right to say that without being called an anti-Semite. And if you want to call me an anti-Semite for it, I simply don't care.
I'm not calling you an anti-Semite. Because people call you that, and I think, look, if you, there's the whole talk about Zionism and anti-Semitism and whatever. I think it's a conversation that you just can't win. But I would like for you to be able to explain yourself, because
Judaism is not Zionism, and it doesn't matter how many people insist that it is. It's just not. It's a political party, and it puts the interests of Israel above everything else. I grew up with Jewish people. Jewish people are my best friends. The nation of Israel is not Judaism. It's a nonsense to suggest that we can critique, as we did earlier, talking about Joe Biden, that we can critique our own president, and nobody cares, because we should. You should be able to hold leaders and their decisions and their feet to the fire. And then to say that if you do the exact same thing over what Bibi Netanyahu's actions are, then you're somehow anti-Semitic.
Okay, I understand that, and I don't disagree. I think you can criticize and analyze the actions of the Israeli government, the IDF, and also Bibi Netanyahu. But to say that, listen, I'm not anti-Semitic because I have Jewish friends. It's kind of like saying I have black friends. I don't think that actually helps your argument, Candace.
No, I didn't say that. What I was saying is that I have Jewish friends. Judaism is not Zionism, as in I have friends who are Jewish who don't support what's happening overseas.
Okay.
Judaism is not Zionism. They don't stop being Jewish because they disagree with what Bibi Netanyahu is doing.
Okay, you say that you're not anti-Semitic, but I can't tell you what's in your heart. I believe you. You said that you're not anti-Semitic. You don't believe that you're anti-Semitic. But there are anti-Semites and neo-Nazis. They do love you. And I want to play this clip. This is from Nick Fuentes, his show just this week. Watch this.
One other big development, Candace Owens did a show today. She did her show, and she talked about my beef with Jordan Peterson. And so I really appreciate her covering it. We love Candace Owens. She's beautiful, she's very intelligent, and she is really hardcore. She's been going off.
Does that bother you that, and that's the whole reason I said, it looks this way, and maybe that's not your intention, as you said, but it looks this way, like you're saying, hey, don't look at what happened with the Holocaust, look over here. But if you have people like Nick Fuentes that said, hey, we love you, whatever, maybe your message isn't hitting correctly. What do you think of Fuentes saying
that? Well, now you're just conflating.
This neo-Nazi audience love you.
Sure. So now you're just conflating things because you're still kind of trying to sell this narrative that this somehow is about Jewish people. What Nick Fuentes is talking about, which this is the first time I'm seeing it because I don't watch Nick Fuentes nearly as much as apparently everybody in the mainstream media does. What he's talking about is what I covered on my show as a news item, which was Jordan Peterson and him having a back and forth. Where Michaela, Dr. Jordan Peterson is, by the way, very lovely, very kind person, but it was a very newsworthy item when Michaela and Peterson, being his daughter, called for censorship. Called for straight up censorship. She's like, we need to have censorship, anybody that uses the term filth. And it was a back and forth between her and Nick Fuentes because he responded and he said, your father literally called me a rat last week. This was a trending item on Twitter. I covered it on my show. To the extent that Nick Fuentes enjoyed the fact that I covered it in a meaningful capacity, because it is problematic when anybody calls for censorship. I don't care if the person's on the left or the person's on the right. You will make an enemy of me because I support the First Amendment and I believe that we have to have free speech. What can I say about that? You know, it's an absurd thing for people to keep pretending. I'm a person that has, across social media, 10 million followers. And when you start getting desperate because you can't actually pull something that I've said, you start going, well, what do you think about this account? And this person has also said this, and this person likes you. If you did that, and I was then accountable for the words that every single person that followed me said, there's no way you can survive that. I could do that right now to you. I could have had my producers, look at this person who follows Don Lemon. They've said something against Black people. So Don Lemon, it's like, that's a ridiculous thing to say. But to the extent that you ask me, and this has happened before, as Piers Morgan did, he said, and he said, you know, this is some things that Nick Fuentes have said. Do you agree with it? And I said, no, I don't agree with that. Yeah. Hold me accountable for what I actually said.
Well, that was the reason I asked you about it. Because
but so I don't agree. Don't you showed me.
I'm not. It's not. This is not a gotcha. I'm asking you.
But that is such a gotcha. That is such a gotcha to say it's nothing that you said. But let me show you this person who likes you. Because what you're trying to do is play this strategy with the public, so they watch it and they go, "Well, she must be saying all sorts of things if this person likes her." Most people do like if you're going to say something on their show and you're showing the back forth that, you know, he's obviously going to say, "Look, Candace covered this issue in a way that's consistent with the beliefs of the First Amendment." So he may say something that I fundamentally disagree with. But if Nick Fuentes says 1 + 1 = 2, and I agree with that, that doesn't mean that I subscribe to everything Nick Fuentes says. If Nick Fuentes says only women can give birth, and I agree with that, you then go, oh, look, Nick Fuentes is celebrating you because you said only women can give birth. I mean, this is you're smarter than this, Don. You're in the public sphere. You know we cannot be beholden or responsible for every comment that is made by people who support us and follow us.
Well, that's why I put it up there, because if someone like Nick Fuentes was saying good things about some of the things that I believed or what I said, that would actually be problematic for me. And I would want to respond to that. I would welcome the opportunity for Candace Owens to play that clip on her show so that I could knock it down and say, I don't believe in anything Nick Fuentes or any of his followers or viewers or whatever. I don't understand why they are happy with what I said, but this is what I believe, and this is the context.
I do believe that it is problematic that Michaela Peterson called for censorship. So I can't knock that down. I can't say, like, what do you want me to say on the show? Well, because Nick Fuentes agrees with that perspective, I'm now anti-speech. That doesn't, I believe in free speech. I believe that what Michaela Peterson said was wrong. I genuinely believe that.
Okay.
Like, you can't just call for censorship.
Great response there by Candace Owens. We're going to go ahead and stop the video there, but I just wanted to show you an expose. Like, Candace Owens was able to prove that Don Lemon is a bad journalist. All he has is these bad assumptions, bad speculations, trying to link people with one another based on his feelings of the situation. And it really is embarrassing. It's so embarrassing for somebody that's been in the media sphere for so long to use such simple tactics that are so easily caught. And I think he thinks he's still protected by his media, mainstream media apparatus, the producers, the social media people, the Twitter goons. But he has none of these protections. Now he's on his own show. He's so bad at making arguments and trying to prove that the other side is so wrong. And obviously it is, because all he has is these made up assumptions that don't line up with the facts of the reality. So anytime anyone actually knows about the facts of the reality, and this is by the way, a technique I saw Destiny use a lot. He basically switches the facts of what is happening in reality, hoping to God you don't know about the truth. And if you don't know about the truth, it works. He looks really good. But if you do know about the truth, you can flip it completely on him and expose him and make him look bad. And that's what Candace Owens was doing the whole time with Don Lemon, for example. During that, she was like confused. I don't know if you're pro-cop or anti-cop. I remember with the BLM you were anti-cop, and now with the January 6th you're pro-cop. You actually believe they did the right thing by shooting that woman, Ashley. And so this was an amazing expose that Candace Owens was doing. Guys, I scour the internet. I look at everything that's interesting, bring it to you guys, and try to deliver as much value as I possibly can through my videos. I really hope you guys can support me with just a small subscription and watching the video till the end and clicking the like button, and maybe leaving a comment down below how I affected you, how much value did I bring to you. But yeah, guys, we're going to keep exposing these people. We're going to keep a vigilant eye out on the social media sphere and the American political sphere. So would love to have you guys on the team. Join the Discord, join the YouTube channel, and let's grow together. Let's go, baby.